pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice on the bulletin board and by emailing a copy of the notice along with the agenda of this meeting to the Press of Atlantic City, Atlantic County Record, Record Journal, and current newspapers stating this meeting would take place at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, October the 6th, 2014, in the Municipal Building, Mays Landing, New Jersey. Mrs. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
And Mayor Silva.
Here. I'd like to take a moment of silence for private reflection, please.
I'm sorry, Roger, could we keep the Korpinski and Emper family in our thoughts and prayers with the loss of Roseanne Emper, lifelong Mays Landing resident, yesterday?
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a presentation, re-green tree.
Before you do that, Mr. Mayor, may I place a statement on the record?
Please.
As is evident, the front of the town hall and the parking immediately in the front of the town hall is closed off. I would like to state for the record that there is signage directing people to the back of the building. The township employee, Mr. Larry Washington of Public Works, was stationed in the back of the building to allow access to the front door, or the back door into this chambers. The front door is open and is available should somebody want to walk around and come in through the front door. So despite the fact that what's going on is going on, access is freely available and is posted.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Continue. Roddy?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce we have a citizens group here that became interested. Well, there's several members of the group that are very interested in green issues. And they found that there was a Sustainable New Jersey organization. This is an independent organization that offers a number of tools to assist people in green-related activities. So when they found the township was not a member of it, they asked if they can make a presentation and be considered for certification from the township. So
I have one.
the presentation will be made by Fran Serovia. Thank you, Fran Serovia.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a citizens-based presentation. And Fran, whenever you're ready.
I'm sorry, I put it into a USB. It's not working. Now it's working.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Sue, do you want to grab that mic and just put it, oh, you have one, okay.
I will use it as soon as I can.
I
Okay.
have something to say.
Well, while you're loading up, this group has met now for several months at the library at 5:30. I think I've announced those meetings a few times. And they've discussed how the township might relate to the Sustainable New Jersey, some of the tools that could be used. In order for the township to receive any grants, and the Sustainable New Jersey does provide grants, but it has to be, they have to be appointed by the township. There has to be a green team appointed by the township. So that's what we're here to present and hopefully get a favorable resolution on.
Hi. Thank you for hearing us tonight. I'm Fran Saravi. I'm with an enthusiastic group of volunteers who are interested in showing, who are interested in having different actions in our township that can lead us towards sustainability. So Sustainable Jersey is an organization that we came across last April, and we thought that it would be a great idea to present it to the Township Committee and ask you two things. One, to register with them, which is a free service, and also to create a green team, which is their only mandatory action. So I'm not going to use the clicker. I am not a professional speaker, so please have patience with me. Okay, so what is Sustainable Jersey? It is a certification program for townships to move towards sustainability, cleaner air, cultural events, and economic support for our local economy. What they do is they have actions that they have developed and researched completely, and they offer support to take those actions. You have a green pamphlet in front of you. There's like 150 different actions. Then one of the really fine things is that they provide tools and training and financial incentives for us to make those actions possible. And I'll get into a little bit more detail further on. So once you're registered, we have access to this huge network of people who have done these things before, other teams, professionals, knowledgeable people, leadership. And like I said before, there's no registration fee or certification fee ever. It's a nonprofit organization. They're supported by a lot of great, they have a lot of financial backing. They don't need us. They don't need our certificate things. I'm sorry. So the reason I'm here is because nobody can argue with clean water, lack of floods, prosperity. And this is an organization that gives us the opportunity to move in that direction, just to give us a nudge to what we were already doing. Their system has three components. The first one is prosperity, so there's a lot of actions there that you work with your local business people to bring more community, local business, to support your local businesses as opposed to the international ones. Planet, there's a lot of things on there which would help sustain our planet. Things as complicated as a carbon footprint, or as simple as a rainwater barrel workshop. And people, there's actually a lot of actions on there that the green team could take that would just be culturally enriching to our community. So Sustainable Jersey is a strong organization. Over the last 5 years, they have 417 of New Jersey's municipalities participating. And to put that in perspective, that's almost 75% of the municipalities in the state. You can see on the map, that's a screenshot of this interactive map that they have. And if you clicked on that, you would come up with a profile of the town, and you could see all the actions they had taken and when it was done and what their population was. And it's a pretty strong tool to use because you can network with anyone who's done something that you've already done. Use a lot of their resources. Now in Atlantic County, this is interesting, 18 of the 23 municipalities are registered. 2 of them have attained something called a silver certificate, and 5 of them have attained a bronze. Of course, silver would be taking more actions. So it's really easy to get registered. If you pass a resolution tonight, all you have to do is go online and register for it. It's a pretty simple form to fill out. Someone from the municipality has to do that. After that, you must create a green team by ordinance. It's part of their, Sustainable Jersey wants to know that municipalities are supporting this purpose. After that, we get to implement actions, and that's what we're kind of excited about. We have some ideas, nothing specific. We'd have to be official before we made any decisions about that. And then basically submit documents saying that you've done those actions, and they review them and certify you. So, like I said, the only action is to create a green team, and it's kind of important, so I made a slide about it. But you guys are the ones, I'm sorry, I do have a degree. But you, the mayor and the council, are who appoint that, but you have to appoint it by resolution or ordinance. That's in the mandate. They can include municipal staff, and it has to have at least one, community volunteers, and you have a whole bunch over here. You could have business leaders from your community, or faith-based members, or school groups, which we've already networked with a lot because we were talking to people at the Fall Festival and at the Wine Festival. There was a lot of people that were really interested in joining with us in some of these actions. So, this is an idea of the type of actions that they are. Now, I'm sorry. Now, there's like 150. This is just like an example. If you were to go online and click on one of these actions, you would get this enormous toolkit. It would tell you why it's important, how to do it, who needs to be involved, how long it would take, and how to get your points for it. If you see over here, there's points, and you get enough points and you get certified. It's kind of basic. Also, there are priority actions, and you have to do 2 of those. But there's like 17 priority actions, I think. These actions were developed by, I don't have the statistics in me, but task force took them over. You know, they've been vetted by many, many municipalities, and they are found to be very manageable and successful. Many, or cutting back on using your our resources as well as our tax dollars. Okay, so here are just a couple examples of cost-saving actions: energy audits and green fleets and solar demonstration projects. And these are all things that we can get support from that organization to do. I just think it's an amazing opportunity, and it's likely that we've already started a lot of these projects, and this could just give us that little bit more support to finish them. There are money-saving programs, such as the BPU, Public Utilities, that help us. And of course, those are available to us here, but there's a lot of support and priority towards registered townships. And so now I want to talk a little bit about the why it's important, what we can benefit from. And first of all, there's incentives and there's grants. Sustainable Jersey has small grants, over $1 million so in the last 4 years have been given out. There's also priority through the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities and the DEP grants. There's priorities for those. And that just sort of says everything. This is a screenshot from Sustainable Jersey website. They actually have all of the funding opportunities all in one place so that it's really easy to find. And in each one of the toolkits, they also have links to other funding opportunities. Okay, so beautiful projects. This is another benefit of Sustainable Jersey. These are things that have been funded by small grants. School gardens and electric vehicles charging stations and education programs and water conservation. There's money in sustainability. These are some of the supporters. Sustainable Jersey has 3 funding sources. 1/3 of it is private foundations, 1/3 business support, and 1/3 state funding. So state funding is run through this, this organization. It's very, very powerful organization at this point. I and some of my co-sponsors or co-workers are very excited about the workshops and the networking opportunities. Coming up in October 22nd, we're going to ACCC for a resiliency workshop. And briefly, resiliency has to do with bouncing back from storms, the storm problems that we've had. And we've had, I don't have to tell you, we've had quite a bit. And there's bragging rights. It's a prestigious honor to be certified here, and you get to the, what is that organization? The League of Municipalities honors you, and there's promotions, and I don't know how important that is because I'm not on city council, but I'm told it's very important. So just to recap, there's a lot of really good benefits to registering with Sustainable Jersey. Conserving valuable resources and protecting our environment, I think, is number one. But saving money, getting money, and access to training and recognition are all probably just as nice to have. So I think the one thing I haven't talked about a lot is the community involvement. You have a really enthusiastic group. I've said that twice. That's the third time now. We're really excited about doing some of these actions. And right now you have the opportunity to just register and allow us to get moving, because we can't move without your blessing. We can't be part of that organization without the township actually passing a resolution for it. So I guess the big question is, what kind of future do we want? And I don't think I talked a lot about it because I wanted to explain what Sustainable Jersey is, but you know, sustainability is one of those words that can mean different things if different people use it. But the one thing is for sure is that it's a promise that we can move towards a cleaner, healthier, more sustainable economic and social community. And that's a very attractive thing, I think. So I want to thank you for allowing me to show you what sustainability is. And if you have any questions, I'm going to ask if they can be directed to some or all of us, because we all have sort of a little bit of knowledge about it.
Fran, if I may, I didn't get a chance to point out the people here that are supporting the effort and that have been part of the team. So if you would just stand up and let people know who you are. I might tell you that they have already, that within this group, you've had one person sponsor an event. Well, several things have happened, but one sponsored event not too long ago where you had some environmental experts come. She had 30 or so people attend the event. They even provided food and whatnot, and this, of course, is at no cost to anybody. It's just out of interest in the environment. And there was a lot of community sharing, and we have people here that have geothermal units and solar power. It just provides an opportunity to network and share information. So I thought it was very nice. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I don't know what questions the group may have. We'd certainly be happy to entertain them.
Yeah, let me ask one question to whoever can answer it from your group. Of the 18 municipalities in Atlantic County that are registered, I think you said 5 were silver and 2 were bronze? Did I get that correct? What level are the remainders at? Is there a level for the remainder 11?
I think I can answer it. They're just participating at that point. They're registered, and you're considered participating until you submit enough documentation to become certified.
Now, of the $1,375,000 in grants over the last 4 years, if my math still works, that's about $345,000, give or take $1,000 a year. Does that come into Atlantic County? And is that divided among the 18, or are there specific recipients?
Hi, my name's Barbara Fiedler. I'm the head of the Galloway Green Team, and I'm here to support their efforts tonight here. Galloway Township is a silver certified community, and we have so far received 3 large grants from Sustainable Jersey and 3 what they call capacity building grants, small grants that are just used for whatever the green team needs to keep it going. So yes, some of that money is here in Atlantic County.
Now, you mentioned you're from Galloway, so now that you do have a green team, do you have an environmental commission also?
Yes, we do.
Do they
It's
work
separate from the green
do they-
team.
They're separate? Do you work together?
Yes, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes.
They can be one and the same.
Thank you.
Did Galloway adopt an ordinance or a resolution to create this in Galloway?
We have a resolution.
It's by resolution?
Yes.
Did Galloway provide funding to to that effort? Do
was
they
no-
have
there's-
formal meetings? Are they open, are they open to the public that you have to keep the public records?
We do have formal meetings, and we do keep minutes for each meeting that are dispersed to a long list of people that are interested, including council people.
Do you know if you're subject, or Bob, do you have any idea, Bob Sandman, whether or not you're subject to the Open Public Meeting Act?
I have no idea.
No, yeah, I was looking past you to, you don't know, or you don't, the lady, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Barbara Fiedler.
Barbara, do you know if you're subject to Open Public Meeting Act, or you do not know?
I imagine we would be, because we are appointed by the mayor and council.
No,
I know we're required to have to post the scheduled meetings. You have
Yes.
to do that. But there is no money involved in this, and
Right.
with there being no money, I don't know that,
That's not the
Requirement.
criteria.
It
I
might
don't
be-
think money's the
It
criteria.
might be classified as an advisory group then.
yeah, it is an advisory group. The way we're proposing it is as an advisory group.
Yeah, it would be an advisory.
Well, there is some level of money. If I heard you correctly, you mentioned one staff member is needed from, one employee is needed to,
No, not one employee, one person to be on the team. There has to be a township individual as part of the team.
so wouldn't
This-
that
this-
be an employee?
Well, it could be, well, the township, yes, it has to be an employee, I would think, yes. Well, it could be certainly a committee person also. In fact, I would propose that we have a committee person at least as a liaison.
Bucket
But
for
you-
another job, huh?
Okay, and just of the, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
some of the things that are on the list here on the startup actions paper that was included. So there's some things on here that I would very much be in favor of kind of pursuing, because I think it's kind of easy, but also has an inherent benefit, like the buy fresh, buy local type program from a food perspective. We've had a lot of energy in the past around farmers markets and things like that, especially because of the amount of farming communities we have. So I think it would be great to try to get some more energy around that. And, you know, we've certainly tried to figure out how do we do that among all the rules and regulations we have to abide by. You know, so I just think more brains around that might be a beneficial thing.
If I just might comment on that, we do have a couple of people that are interested in joining the organization and want to do exactly that. They want to form a farmer's market. I've talked to them. I told them about some of the other people that mentioned that. So hopefully they can maybe get some synergy amongst them.
Right, but you remember the challenges we had with
Yes,
in terms
yes,
of
I do. That's right.
locating,
Yeah.
putting a farmer's market somewhere. That's our challenge. And then just some of the other things like the local economies, the green business recognition and the green jobs economic development. I think, you know, certainly jobs is a key component anywhere you go these days. And the buy local programs, the buy local campaign, support local businesses. You know, waste management, we've taken certainly a lot of steps here over the years to try to improve recycling, specifically going to the waste management cans that we went to limit the amount of trash that people could throw away every week and try to increase recycling, thereby limiting that trash space. So that was one of our goals of switching to the automated collection. So I certainly think a continued effort on, trying to improve recycling wherever we can would be worthy. Where I get a little bit nervous are some of the things on the list just around, green design, demonstration type programs, the green, building related type stuff, because we get a lot of feedback often that we put too many restrictions or too much regulation on people when they're trying to come to Hamilton Township to build, whether it is residential or commercial. So I just get nervous. I don't want the process to become more onerous. So I guess my question is, have you all discussed kind of where you would want to focus on any of these projects first, or just in general what direction you want to take? Because that would kind of drive my decision making.
So every town, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So every town has its own unique needs and desires. And so I think each one of us has our own kind of focus on where we'd like to see it, but we all understand that we can't even make those kinds of decisions until we're official, because we have to have township input. We have to have the kind of things that you guys would, as a council, would not be opposed to.
Okay. And Rodney, just in your discussions with any of this, has any of the strategic focus group information come into play, as driving the need for this?
We have discussed the strategic planning effort, and actually I thought this was very consistent with that overall goal to get the community involved and to use community resources to help achieve our general community goals. Here you've got a team here that's working on goals that are consistent with what the township is working on, and you have a lot of enthusiastic involvement. So yes, we have discussed that. And by the way, in terms of projects to talk about, we've talked about education. Many of the members would be happy to go to schools and talk to the principals and whatnot and get the kids involved. That was one of the key things we talked about. So there are a number of things involving public education, community education, residents, that have been talked about. Even the people that have installed solar power and solar electricity, and the people that have geothermal systems. Just having that resident knowledge and having a focal point to go talk about it are one of the key things the group has talked about.
Well, you know yourself, Rodney, you're part of the Building 1 group.
Yeah.
Also, they talk about transportation and land use here. Obviously, transportation is a big focal point in the area because of, let's say, the lack of it, because there's not a lot of public access. And you and I sat on a panel at the vocational
ACES.
school several months back and talked about the need for that. So I think there's a lot of efforts out there of a lot of people trying to deal with many of these issues, and some of it is of great interest, and other at the present time is being driven by the fact that there's only so many dollars to go around. And I'll recognize you in a second, thank you. And that's one of the things. I mean, when you talked about sustainability, each year when we go through our reorganization here on Township Committee, I think many of the committee people, in fact, probably all of them feel the same when it comes to one of our biggest challenges is to sustain our community. And when we refer to that sustainability, we talk about it in a financial sense, because obviously money is getting shorter. The economic conditions have forced a lot of issues. I mean, if you opened up the paper today, there were 9 pages of sheriff sales. And when you look at a lot of what's not happening versus what is happening, there's a great concern out there. So for some people, this may be the furthest thing from their mind. For those who deal with it every day, it's on the tip of your priority list because you're driven by it and you see the end result of it. Many people who are looking at their own homes and the power plants in them have upgraded. I know I personally, 4 years ago, was able to do a lot with my home, not with solar, but just by upgrading the type of heating cooling systems that I put in, and it actually cut my electric bills by more than a half. So obviously, when you look at that, and of course, Amy brought up a good point too, because of the collection issue in terms of the way we handle that. And don't forget, the county's involved too. Is the county involved in any of this? It is?
Well, we have members.
No, I'm talking about the county itself in terms of, because you have the ACUA, and they do a lot in terms of some of the issues you talked about in here, or at least that are on your list. Does that fold? Does that blend?
Yes, it does, and we had one of the county commissioner, what's his name, attend the meeting okay, go ahead. Michelle?
Rick Dovey?
Okay. Well, so the ACUA, I work for the ACUA, you might know that, but they have definitely been supportive of Sustainable Jersey, of the program. I know Rick Dovey is on the board. But it isn't a county sustainability program, it's a municipality. So, we definitely, the ACUA definitely does support it. And we'd like to see all the towns in Atlantic County involved because it's been helpful. It's been helpful to them. I don't know, does that answer your question?
You provided quite a bit of literature also, the ACUA has. Certainly at the meeting I attended, there was literature provided by ACUA.
Well, yeah, we do promote the things that the ACUA does, and a lot of that stuff, having to do with recycling and renewable energy and conservation is all part of being sustainable. It can be, a piece of the pie.
Would you-
Hi, I'm Susan Lazarchik. I'm a lifelong Atlantic County resident, 22 years in Hamilton Township. I think just from listening, there's a lot of brainstorming. There's a lot of things that we could do with it, a lot of ways we can go, but we can't do any of it unless we sign up. And I mean, you have a group of volunteers here. We had a meeting last week. We had close to 20 people. There's people that are interested that want to volunteer to give their time, but we can't do anything through this group unless you sign a resolution. We can do things on our own. We can maybe work towards these goals that they're offering because it's almost like why reinvent the wheel? They're doing good things. They're showing success. There's by talking to Galloway Township, we can get ideas, we can share resources by talking to other organizations in the Sustainable Jersey groups in the county, the state. We can brainstorm, get ideas, see what's worked, come back here. Certainly open to township input, open to community input. But we can't do any of it within the auspices of this organization unless you sign up. The only required thing to do is sign up. And then one mandatory action. We can choose. The only mandatory action is to make a green team. That's it. Hopefully we're going to be successful if we do this. It's going to take a lot of people's efforts, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of cooperation, but give us a chance to try it. And be registered. And even if you register, you can use that, we're registered, we're participating in that. And that's really the first step. All of this is going to take baby steps. Sustainability isn't going to happen overnight. It's baby steps, like you said, the trash and, getting a new heating system. And there's a lot of things in here through the clean energy that, some residents know about, some residents don't know about. So part of it is education, educating residents. We can't do it by ourselves. And hopefully, maybe school groups, there's, network, get people involved, maybe Girl Scouts, maybe Boy Scouts, groups that want to do things that really don't have a vehicle right now to get involved. So it's like you've got all this free resources of people that want to do things, so.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I can respond to that. I'm sorry that you're feeling maybe a sense of hesitation or reluctance. I think we're just trying to do our diligence and ask the questions.
Absolutely.
Because, and maybe I've been in government too long, but one of the things that I found is that nothing is really ever free. So there's always a cost to something that comes up. And we our laser focus has been on budget. So like when you say educating via mailings, things that come to mind is, are we paying for that mailing or is the program paying for the mailing? Because to mail to 27,000 residents can be costly. So that's just the devil's in the details, always, right? So that's the kind of stuff that goes around in my mind. And the other thing I'm just slightly confused about, and it's interesting to hear that Galloway has an environmental commission, because basically the things that are in the establishment of the ordinance that's in front of us, that's listed for what the Green Team Advisory Committee would actually do, it's almost verbatim as to what our environmental commission is tasked to do. So I'm just slightly confused in terms of why wouldn't we leverage the environmental commission? Why would we kind of add to the size of government by creating yet another thing?
For me personally, I like Sustainable Jersey. I like how it's set up. I like the leadership. I like the trainings. They're doing the training, resiliency training. They're involved with, there's trainings, there's things that I can do to be involved and network with people that, for me, are like-minded people where I've been recycling since Stockton had barrels out, many, 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 many years ago. I have geothermal. We have solar hot water. We have an organic garden. We're beekeepers. So it's been something that's important to me, and it's been important to me. I have more recycling going out than trash. We put our trash out every 3 or 4 weeks, and we do a lot of recycling. So it's in my life, And honestly, I don't want to be on an environmental commission, maybe later, but I want to be involved with Sustainable Jersey.
We did discuss this, the fact that there are two groups and what the differences were. And I like to say a big difference is that this is very much a community-based group that wants to share their knowledge amongst themselves. They're not particularly interested in watching what the Planning Commission is doing and making sure that's enforced. They're more interested in sustainable activities and sharing their interests. I just might also say, Upper Township, I talked with the group down there, and they have a sustainability effort. They're members. They also have an environmental commission, but the sustainability group does their own thing. By the way, the city doesn't provide any money for them. And we have talked with this group about that. So they're very sensitive to the fact that the township does not have additional money, and that we have a staff that is highly, what's the word, that doesn't have any additional free time. So they're well aware of that. And I think the vast majority of the effort is going to come from this group.
Yeah, I just asked because, the establishment says the purpose of the committee is keeping the township committee informed of green initiatives. Letter B in the Environmental Commission powers and duties is planning and informing the public about local conservation programs. In the establishment of the committee, it says impact upon the sustainability of the environment. Letter A in the Environmental Commission is the promotion of the conservation and development of environmental quality of Hamilton Township. And then it says otherwise advise the Township Committee regarding state and county level legislation which may impact the sustainability and the environment. Letter H in Environmental Commission says act as the coordinating agency of the community on conservation matters as liaison between local conservation needs and regional, state, and federal agencies administering those needs. That's where to me it sounds almost...
There's no doubt there's similarities. I think the main difference is that this is much more community-oriented.
Okay.
And I think, go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, I have one question here. The levels at which you are to obtain after, acquiring 150 points, and actions must be completed in 6 of 17 categories. Is that required in order to gain any money? I don't see where it says that it isn't. What?
That's to get certified, they're saying.
That's just to get certified, but on what basis do they give grants?
Well, they have to be applied for.
Well,
You have to register.
You just register, they're going to give money?
You have to apply for it.
Apply for the grant, but what do they insist on as far as, your durability, how you will spend it, how it would be administered? Any grants that we have are administered through our administration here, as far as I know. And what I thought that maybe, like the road program, we're on an ongoing thing for the road program, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mr. Fiedler?
Complete street programs, what does that mean? Or sustainable land use pledge, does that mean that the engineers have to approve it, or they have to give an environmental impact on these things, which then costs a lot of money too?
Judy, where are you reading that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. either.
Startup actions. Startup actions.
Okay. I have them here, I just didn't know which page you were looking at.
Mr. Fiedler is trying to.
I know that Ed Sasdelli did a complete analysis of this 3 years ago, and I'd love to have his letter because it pointed out how much money was really involved in all these action items. To do an audit, it's $2,200. The cheapest is $1,500. I think if they can, if you can get a grant to help in these different endeavors, that would be great. I mean, because all of them are, this is where we want to be headed, and we have been heading steadily in that direction with our recycle, I'm sure that our township has considered green building material, but to force that on everybody else, who is going to enforce all these actions? Do we have to hire someone to do that? I mean, I love the idea of sustainable New Jersey. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that I don't think there's any money involved in this.
Mr. Fiedler has had his hand up for a while there. Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Stephen Fiedler. I'm from Galloway Township. My wife Barbara and I got involved in Sustainable Jersey, 5, 6, 7 years, long time, and we've been through quite a journey, and it's been an amazing, exciting journey. Far before that, probably 15, 18 years, I've been co-chair of the Environmental Commission in Galloway Township. So to directly answer your question, they can be one and the same. They can be two separate issues. I, in Galloway, have found that the Environmental Commission is more an aid to the planning board, and we see a lot of the, all the plans coming through and evaluate them on their basis of environmental impact. And we don't have a lot of time, basically, to go into the many, many issues that Sustainable Jersey covers. So having the green team in Galloway has been a whole new world of items to attend to, and we've been quite successful at bringing community members to the table and to the actions. And if you wanted a clear distinction, it's more Environmental Commission helping the planning board, helping the council to address issues of wetlands and resiliency. They have great programs about resiliency, just like Go Green or the Sustainable Jersey does. But Sustainable Jersey has a footprint and a map and a roadmap out there, which we didn't have when we started. We started basically seat of the pants and grew with the program, and are very, very excited still to this day. We're more than happy to come out to speak to panels like yourselves to express the fact that it does work. Our community is much more active now around these actions, and specifically the one about green building. I'm in the trade, so I worked on a draft of a green building checklist. It has nothing to do with requiring anybody to do anything. It's just part of a packet. You can, if you want to build greener, I've laid out with the assistance of others on focus groups through Rutgers to show how it can be done. You can build greener if you want to. Doesn't require you to do anything along those lines. Many of the other issues about economics and farming and business support have been quite successful. And as Barbara has said, we've been able to receive quite a lot of grant money and capacity building money when you need it. If you tailor your request for a grant to a specific action, that's how it works. If you zero in on one action and think that you have the people to make it work, you build your points up until you get certified. You draw upon the actions and the experience of communities around you and also the staff at Sustainable Jersey. So ANJEC, which is the Environmental Commission group in New Jersey, can be a big help. A lot of the green teams are ANJEC members, so you get double help, and the opportunities for grants are doubled as well. So if you have an active environmental commission, you can make that part of your green team. But let your residents volunteer, because the strength of the program is in the community. Draw upon that strength.
How long has this been in existence?
09,
Since
2009.
Now, since then, only 139 of the 565 or 567 municipalities in the state of New Jersey have been certified.
Oh, 400 and,
417.
oh, registered.
417.
registered.
417 are registered?
Yeah.
Well, either registered,
Now,
certified, or.
now, Michael, I'm going to put you on the spot. Michael was at Old Bridge before he came here to Hamilton Township. Could you tell us about your experience with this? Don't get red now.
We started into the program, and there were some ordinances that
There was some what?
There were some ordinances that you needed to draft and approve, and our leadership didn't want to move on those. So we didn't get to any of the certifications before we kind of
Okay,
stalled.
so the program never took off in your older
We
municipality?
did some of the little things in the beginning, but then it just stalled and didn't go.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what's happened since I've gone, but.
I think the deputy mayor brought up a good point before, and please, don't misunderstand the questions and the direction. We're very cautious about proceeding into things, and obviously, when you, probably in my estimation, I would like to take a step back and look more into this, because to move on this time, just to make a decision just based on what I heard here tonight, it hasn't been enough to convince me it's the way to go. Even though I do a lot of the things, I probably recycle as much as you do. Every 2 weeks, I probably put out 4 or 5 trash cans full of it. And obviously, there are things we do. But just to jump feet first into this thing at this time, I need to know more.
Ask another question?
Please.
Rodney, did you guys have any discussion in terms of, first of all, how does Clean Communities fall into this? Because I know we do a lot of different work with the Clean Communities program that we're a part of. And then the other question is, things that we've done in the past, do we get credit for that? Like, so for example, and Ingrid, maybe you're going to speak to this. I know we've done an energy audit of sorts in the past. I know we've even done some improvement things through Sustainable New Jersey grants that we've gotten that you didn't have to be registered to apply for in the past. So
We've taken a lot of actions over the years here, quite a few things that we probably could get credit for already.
Okay.
We've done some energy audits. We've done things with our recycling programs and non-traditional materials and things like that. Let me take my hat off for a second and be a resident. I'm really excited about seeing all of these volunteers come out, because most of these people I've known for over 20 years, some of whom I went to college with for environmental studies. And it's a really neat thing to see all of these people here, very excited. So now I put my hat back on, and I tell you, I'm ready and willing to assist with this, especially with this enthusiastic group of volunteers, if that's the direction that you choose to take.
And I just want to reemphasize a couple of points. Number one, the way we've written it up, it's an advisory team. That's all. It don't pass any regulations or anything else. It's an advisory team. And number two, there is no budget. It's been written up so there is no budget. Everyone does recognize that if you have the participation of some member of the staff, that does involve some resources. But the cost is low, and the cost, the risk, I don't see any risk. I see the opportunity to get our citizens involved totally in the spirit of the strategic planning group and totally in the spirit of the group I had, the quality of living. This is exactly what the kind of thing that we wanted to do. And I'd like to do this in other areas too, where we get this kind of citizen involvement. That's what the community's about. So I'm enthusiastic about this also, and I'm happy to see all these people that are enthusiastic about it.
Anyone else?
I do note that the intent does say, first of all, Aline, to answer your question, that this would not be subject to the Open Public Meetings Act because of the advisory nature of it. It's letter B in intent. And letter C is the advisory committee shall have no authority to expend any fund and no fund shall be appropriated in the budget for the advisory board. So that makes me feel better.
Yeah, I can see where, for instance, the meeting when the environmental, we didn't really have any budget per se, except for Betty taking the notes and submitting them. You know, a lot of this is done through a very enthusiastic populace. But I really get very nervous when it says when it says the current pending township ordinances, county or state laws affecting sustainability and the environment and other issues which have an impact on the sustainability of the township and its environment. Yes, we address these things, but is that going to be something that is very ongoing with this advisory committee? That, you know, you're going to, it just seems to me as though it would be overwhelming. That's my thing on it. And I really, you know, once we pass an ordinance about something such as anti-idling or any of these things, complete street programs and stuff like that, it takes money to do these things. It's not going to be a freebie.
This is an advisory team, so they will not be expending any money. Any
No,
decisions?
they're not, but as a result of this, we will.
Well, only if you want to. Only if the board if the committee considers whatever the proposal is worthwhile. Then we would spend money. If it wasn't worthwhile, we wouldn't. But this committee has no budgetary power.
No,
Yeah,
that's true.
I think, Judy, probably where your concern is going is all these people might do an extensive amount of work and put all this energy and passion and then propose something and we don't have the budget dollars to do it. And I think that's where your concern is coming from. You know, Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking at the resolution online as well, because Galloway said they created via the resolution.
That's right.
Did you say you created the green
talking
team
like the
or
mayor
you just
staff.
registered via resolution? Okay, because the resolution says, it goes into supporting participation in the Sustainable New Jersey Municipal Certification Program, and the be it resolved says that, basically that the municipality will pursue local initiatives and actions that will lead to Sustainable New Jersey Municipal Certification. So that's much different to me than just creating a green team if now the goal is that we want to be certified. To me, that's another question. So is the goal at this point just to have a green team who can talk, or is the goal to have a green team and make Hamilton Township a certified entity?
So the goal is to eventually become certified, of course. But I want to make the point that there's over 150 different actions in that pamphlet, and we're certainly not going to attempt to do all of them. The ideas that we have so far are either painless or stuff that will be supported by Sustainable Jersey as a group. I want to make the point that we didn't ask to join the Environmental Commission because we don't really want to write laws. We don't want to be involved in the politics of it. We want to get out and do things in our community. That's why we're here today, and that's why we would prefer to go through Sustainable Jersey rather than sit on the Environmental Commission and evaluate what the Planning Board is doing. These are exciting actions, I think, that we've gotten a lot of public support for. So,
Yeah,
and
I mean-
Barbara wanted to say something too.
Could you, I would like to move on. We've got a real long agenda tonight, so if you could, and then we'll just put it to a point and move on, okay? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that there is no timeline for certification. A lot of towns, as you saw, register, form their green team. Their green team are taking actions that are not costing the town any money. If there is an action that might cost the town some money, you can apply for a grant for that action. The capacity building grant gives you seed money for your green team. They can use it to create flyers, to do anything like that that they want to do to publicize the green team events. And it's a good group here. You have a very enthusiastic group, and more people in this community are interested in joining this group. And it would be a really wonderful thing if they were allowed to proceed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone
All
else
right.
on committee have anything before we move on?
No, I'm ready to move the ordinance.
I'm not, Rodney.
Not either.
What I'd like to suggest, if we could, and I'm not in favor of introducing an ordinance immediately following a presentation for any topic, just to be
agree.
clear.
Well, there's got to be a second reading, so we're,
I
But
understand
it could be
that,
done by resolution, is what they said, instead of ordinance, which,
but we don't have a resolution in front of us. We have an
no,
ordinance.
understood, but it doesn't have to be an ordinance, was my point.
So my suggestion was going to be, Rodney, if we could, if we're all in favor of it, is potentially ask our solicitor to review either the ordinance or the resolution that's on their website and make a recommendation to us as to, is it good to go, and, which way should we
so
proceed?
just let me make
But they
one.
need
The
to
reason,
have they need to have the green team advisory to continue on, is that not correct?
I guess that could happen after the solicitor is finished looking at it. I think that's
just the reason we
reasonable.
have, the reason we have an ordinance here and not a resolution was because we looked at what kind of team we could form. We only have three forms of team here. It was a commission, advisory committee, or board. But did I miss one? In any event, the advisory committee would seem to be the most appropriate way to go, and that requires an ordinance in order to establish it. That's the reason we haven't.
You'll be
And
able
I'm
to
not
tell us that,
disagreeing
right?
with you, Rodney. I'm just saying, I don't think, Mr. Solicitor, you reviewed this potential new law, which is an ordinance.
I have not.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying, before we introduce a potential new law, I'd like the solicitor to
Well,
review it.
may I?
Okay.
Yes.
The way I understood the presentation, the first step is a resolution. And the resolution can be done at one meeting. And then the second step is an ordinance, which requires two meetings. I have not seen this before tonight, and so that you know, even though I'm a lawyer, I'm also a farmer.
And a good one.
But I would not advise you to take any action right now. The presentation was exceptional.
It was.
There's no one that can disagree with sustaining our environment in this state. But I understand the concerns that are coming from the committee, and the concerns are that usually when these things happen, there's an attendant cost. They have to pay me to draft an ordinance, they may have to pay the engineer to be involved, and these are the kind of concerns that this committee has been involved in every single issue that's come here for the last 5 years that I've sat in this seat. And it comes on the heels of fiscal responsibility in a community like this that has not been seen anywhere in this state, anywhere, anytime, ever. So their concerns are consistent with what this committee has done regardless of the individuals that have sat up there for the last 5 years. And I've always been supportive of their endeavor in that regard because I live in this town. So what I am suggesting to you, Mr. Mayor and members of the Township Committee, is that I will review this. I will review the form of resolution, I'll review the form of ordinance, and I will not bill you for it. Okay?
Well, that's even better.
So- But more importantly, I think that what I need to do is to contact my colleagues who are solicitors in other towns and see whether or not there are the attendant costs, Judy, that you're talking about. And whether or not, in fact, Rodney, when you say if there is an expense, we as the committee have the right to say yes or no when it comes up. And I see those as the two important fiscal issues. And I'll be in a position to do that at the next meeting.
Well, we thank you.
Very good.
You all right with that? It'll probably be on the next agenda in 2 weeks.
I can send you samples
Bobby,
of the resolution.
Mr. Solicitor, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks at that time? And you have to understand, just as you do due diligence, we do it here too. And it's meant to get all the questions that we can answered as we start listening to you and what you want to accomplish. I admire Rodney and I compliment him for bringing it forward because he's been an advocate of this ever since I met him, and I think he's moving in the direction that will be beneficial to the community. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your time.
I want to thank you also.
Thank you
for all of
your time. Thank
Thank
you.
I'd
you.
like to thank you as well,
Okay.
and to know everybody.
The next item on the agenda is to adjourn to executive session. We will do that at the end of the meeting. And I'm not sure at this point if there'll be any confirmation. We'll determine that at the time. Next item is the addition or deletion of late items for consideration tonight.
Before we do anything, could we add item 7 to delete? Since we're not going to take action, let's delete it now.
Do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
Okay, so that'll be deleted, item 7. And just for everyone's information, that's the ordinance to appoint a green team, and you heard the discussion on that, so it makes sense to do that.
So I'll move the addition and deletion of late items, including item 7.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the early public comment on agenda items not listed for public hearings.
Mr. Mayor, I have one person signed up, Jody Bolgen, 9P.
9B?
P, as in Paul. I think it's a bond.
9B on the consent agenda?
9P as in Paul.
As in Paul.
Escrow
Oh,
release.
Paul, I'm sorry.
It's on the
It's on
addition.
the addition.
Come on up, please.
Yeah, just turn it down, there you go.
For your time. I just,
Could you speak into the mic? I can't hear you. Thank you,
you can
Jody.
hear now?
And
Okay.
name for the record.
I'm
And your
just-
name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jody Bolgan.
Is the
Thank you.
mic on?
Excuse me?
Is the microphone
Lisa's
is on?
hearing it? Okay.
thank you.
Just stay.
Bulkon? How do you spell your name?
Bolgen.
Thank you.
I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant, which is actually a former church, the Restored Israel View Way. And I'm asking, we had made a subdivision back in 2010, were the beginnings of it, and went through all the steps and processes. And of course, this township works with the Pinelands because of, that unique, beautiful property out there. And, we have a lot of respect for it. And, we appreciate that the way the township has operated and, helping to preserve that. And the church has always had aspirations to do the same thing. And part of their land was sold to Green Acres to further that preservation. And so my question tonight was, we did get the approval from our township engineer after all the recommendations had been met. And it took a couple years to do that, like 2.5 years. And some of that time, unfortunately, was a lapse in our builder not being able to tell us that there were still things that needed to be done, and that took 8 months in itself. But they were minor things that got finished very, very quickly. One of them was painting the stripes on the turnaround that we put in there in the bus stop. And it gets mowed regularly by the people that built a house out there. And, you know, there's a lot of pride, and it's a beautiful road that they put in, and the township can definitely use it for, you know, emergency vehicles. And we, you know, that was a very good thing that happened out there for that road. But the one thing that wasn't anticipated was the church, from lack of funding, had to close, and some of the members, former members, personally spent their money to try to pay for the rest of the bills, just to, you know, finalize a lot of these issues. And we were not anticipating the 2 years of maintenance that is still held by the township, and it ends up being a small amount of money, but because it's someone's personal money, it ends up being like a hardship issue that I wanted to just request if possibly the township could consider the 2.5 years as that we have maintained it, and we've actually repainted the striping as part of that recommendation. So I was just wondering if we could have that waived and have it finalized, since it's been a long, ongoing process.
Mr. Where's the solicitor?
I'm sorry?
What?
He ran away.
Well, we have a memo from Bob. Do you want to comment on this?
This is the first I'm hearing of the request for
Waiver?
the waiver of the maintenance guarantee.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can. Can you wait?
It was just done very quickly.
They want to
last
waive.
He's back now.
Bob, do you know when the improvements were finished, that the 2.5 years that the Mrs. Bolkin just mentioned? Would the improvements have been done at least 2.5 years ago, that in effect the 2 years maintenance is already on the clock, it's expired, even though it's not officially expired?
To be perfectly honest, I can't comment on when the roadway extension was
They want to know.
completed, because I wasn't prepared to answer these questions. We had gotten the request for the release of the performance guarantee, and we were contacted by, I don't know if it's Ms. Bolgan's brother or husband, to say that the work was done. We got the request in through the clerk's office. We went out and took a look at it and made a recommendation to release the performance guarantee.
Which is the only action on the agenda right now.
Is to release the performance guarantee contingent upon the posting of a
Yeah,
2-year
it's
maintenance
contingent.
guarantee.
He's talking about that now.
The roadway extension and the majority of the work has been completed for some time. It was basically restriping the bus stop, some cleanup items along the edge of the roadway. But as I sit here today, I can't tell you exactly when the roadway extension was complete.
The kind of questions that this is triggering, for all the times I've seen performance guarantees going to maintenance, if the church closed, is that what you're saying? Church is non-existent?
Exactly.
Who would have posted the original escrow? It says held in escrow as a performance guarantee, $7,300 in round, just to use a number. Whose money is that? And if it's the non-existent church, then the person who did the project is the one, in my mind, who's responsible to post the maintenance guarantee. So if this is the now non-existent church's money, only part of it should be released and the other part should be held as the maintenance guarantee, because that's the obligor in my mind.
I believe that's what's being done. My understanding is that it was a cash performance guarantee,
recommended.
$25,000 and change. It was reduced to 30% of the original performance guarantee in accordance with the municipal land use law. And now that the work is completed, they're required to post a 15% maintenance guarantee for a period of 2 years. So I think it's a question of, there was 30% of the original bond remaining.
Right.
They're going to release, or the township, if they so choose, will release half, and half will be maintained as the 15% maintenance
I'm sorry?
guarantee for 2 years.
You're asking who you're going to release it to? If the church isn't?
If
That's a
the
good
church is
question.
non-existent, that's exactly, Michael's got what my thought is. We wouldn't be releasing the money to a non-existent church, but the non-existent church is the obligor to maintain this for the 2 year, 2.5 years, whatever is necessary for a maintenance guarantee. So if we already have their money, why wouldn't we be keeping their money? Unless I'm misunderstanding from the speaker that the money that's is posted is not church money to begin with, it's personal funds of various people.
Yes, exactly.
It's personal funds of various people?
Turned into personal funds.
The whole amount?
Partially, it was part of the church, but that was given back from the township when the road was put in. We completed the list. It was reduced as per the way the township operates with giving back some of that money. So this is just the remainder. If I just wanted to know if there's any possible way that the rest of the money could be given back. I know that is how it works now, but we weren't anticipating another 2 years.
Well, it's
It's a
It's
more
still the
technical
church's,
issue.
it's still the church's money. See, I misunderstood your question. It's still the church's money because the church posted the guarantee. Now, the question is, who does the money get released to?
Exactly, because
Is there a power of attorney for the church? Is there
Well-
somebody named?
There's people that handle the monies, but there really isn't an organization's name anymore. We're keeping a post office box open, and that's costing more personal money. And just, to continue it is, if there's any possible reason that you would feel, but it's, everything was done, and a road was put in, and striping, and.
Right.
Roger, I think we have to hold this over.
I do. I was just going to say,
yeah,
I was
I
gonna
think
ask
we
the
have to
Mr.
have it
Solicitor,
held over.
Hold it until the next meeting.
We need to examine the who struck Johns here. If we were going to release the money, how would we be able to handle that? There's some vagueness to this, not doubting what you're saying, but we have certain obligations that if I gave him trust money and he's holding it in trust, he's got to give it back to me. But, if I took a powder, what happens to the money? And that's a little bit of the bind we're in right now. So I would rather see our officials take a look at it and be in contact with you to see how to sort it out.
I agree with that.
I don't think we could make a decision on that tonight.
I guess I have a question, but for Ms. Bolger showing up to request the waiver of the maintenance guarantee, who would we have cut the check to for releasing half of the performance guarantee money? It would have been sent back to the Restored Israel of Yahweh
The P.O. Box.
Church.
I have to tell you, I stepped out to go to the facility, but hearing what I'm hearing, I would strongly recommend that 9P be removed from the agenda tonight.
Okay.
And we can take into
So
consideration
moved.
the request, and then I'll speak to Bob, but Aline is exactly right.
Thank you.
Who does, when you release it, who does it go to? And that's my concern.
And when we do, can we just, I know it says contingent upon posting the 3,600, right? Can we just keep the 3,600 out of the 7,300 and then give them the balance?
I'm not quite sure of that,
Okay.
but I will say this. It may require some agreement from somebody who may or may not exist right now.
Right.
So no one, Bob Smith and Bob Sandman are not in a position to advise you on that.
Okay.
So you'll get your contact
Who do you
information.
communicate with so that if they need to, has
Guess
there
with
been a
Jody.
change?
Basically, all correspondence has been sent to the Restored Israel of Yahweh, and I copied on the email Ms. Bolger and
Okay.
Nancy Misko. But for her appearance, we would have had no idea that this was even an issue.
Right.
Okay. Ms. Bulger, you understand this, hopefully you'll get some resolve to this by the next meeting. But in the meantime, he's recommending that we pull this from the agenda because there can't be any finality put to this at this time.
Yeah, I understand. There is one more question I had, though. The way it was supposed to work is the church or whoever represents the church now financially for this last leg of the work is supposed to agree that half of it would be returned and a check given if we were to submit a letter stating that we agree to that term that was given through the engineer's office.
Do you have that,
So-
Bobby? Copy of that letter?
But we can
Any
handle that over the
correspondence
next 2
that you
weeks.
feel is appropriate,
Mhm.
would you please make sure that Mr. Smith gets it, or our attorney, Mr. Sandman? Okay, this way, hopefully it can...
Mike's going to get your information, it looks like.
Okay.
Okay.
And when is the next township meeting?
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks? Okay.
Now, you made a
20th.
motion, Rodney?
Yeah, I move that we
Table
move
it. You
this,
just-
table this item.
Second.
I have a motion
Or
is second.
Judy.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Mike, on public comment? That's it? Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion Atlantic County tax overcharge. We asked to put this on the agenda because obviously, people read in the newspaper on September the 24th that the tax error to mean refunds. The bad news is most of Atlantic County municipalities were overcharged for county library and public health taxes in 2014. The good news is that their first quarter tax bills for 2015, they will be replaced by an overpayment that they have made, County Tax Administrator Margaret M. Schott has said. Now, Atlantic City, of all the 23 municipalities, Atlantic City is the only town not affected because it doesn't participate in either the county, library, or public health system, but runs its own city systems. Now, rather than incur huge cost of this is what the article said, rather than incur huge cost of recirculating and remailing every 2014 tax bill, the office is refunding overpayments to towns in the form of lower 2015 tax bills than they would ordinarily have to pay. This was in the Atlantic City Press, September the 24th, 2014. Now, on the letter that was sent to me on September the 16th, that was addressed to me, but it's for all the committee and for all our residents. The purpose of this letter is to notify you that the Board of Taxation made an error in calculating the tax rate for Hamilton Township in 2014. In effect, the mistake caused an overpayment of taxes. Wow, you don't normally hear that from the government, do you? Ever. I apologize for the inconvenience this will cause for you and for your residents. There were several calls made to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs to determine the best way to handle this occurrence. There was an identical event in another county this year. The State Department of Community Affairs directed the board to inform the municipalities that the appropriate adjustment will be made in 2015. Their rationale is that the cost of recalculating and remailing every tax bill in 2014 was financially excessive. The state has directed the county treasurer to place extra funds collected this year in a special account. The credit for the overpayment will be realized in the first quarter of 2015. This process is similar to the manner in which debits and credits are handled in the case of property tax appeals. Now, in the meantime, from our CFO, on October the 2nd, Cindy Lindsay sent to Township Committee and obviously copied Mike Jacobs, Renee DeSalvo, who's our tax collector, and Bill Johnson, our tax assessor. As you may be aware, the Atlantic County Board of Taxation issued Atlantic County municipalities, excluding Atlantic City, notices that an error was made in the tax rate for 2014. The details of that error can be found in a letter issued. That was the one I just read you. Following that letter, the article in the press, we read that also. One of the roles of the Division of Local Government Services is to provide local units with guidance when unforeseen situations happen. It is their goal to advise the local units solutions with the best interest of all the parties as a whole. Cindy is saying, I immediately contacted the Division of Local Government Services and requested clarification of their directive given to the county as it pertained to the municipalities. They responded to me with this directive. All adjustments to the tax rate shall be made in 2015. This means when the township receives its MODIV tape from the county to uphold the tax rate July 2015, the credit will be included in the billing period for 2015. They further commented that there was no statutory authority for refunds, and there would be MODIV issues as a result of refunds. Now, Cindy, would you come up to the mic, and Bill, and is Renee still here? Come on up, Renee, please. This issue is one in which obviously has generated phone calls from residents. There's always been the outcry of the average payment to, come on up, to the average assessed home of $177,000 would be $26 and change. How's it going to be handled? So, Bill, would you, first of all, you're just agreeing with all that was sent, correct? Or any comments you want to make? And I realize you're and I thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
No, it's on behalf of the assessor's office. It's not really an assessment issue.
I understand, but go ahead. Did you get many calls as a result of this?
Just a few the day of the article.
Okay.
Okay.
Renee?
What was your question?
Calls to your office.
The day of the article, we received one or two, but
Stay up
no
here.
one asked for a refund. No one said they were expecting a refund back. They just wanted some clarification on what the article meant, but they were not asking for how much is my credit and when will I see that.
Okay.
No.
Cindy, anything else regards from the finance office?
Nothing in addition to what my memo said.
Okay. And while I have you right now, and I know this is out of the ordinance, does anybody in the audience have any questions with regard to this issue? I know it's taken out of order, but go ahead, Jim.
The first quarter of 2015, would that be February 1st?
The reference to the first quarter of 2015 that the county tax administrator is referring to is where the debits and credits will show on their books. That isn't when the credits and debits will be seen on the residents' books. That will be July, when the 2015 tax rate is struck.
What might be, bill be February 1st, right now?
Same as it is.
Same as it is right now.
1310?
Yes.
Okay, so then the credits will move beyond that date, correct?
Yeah, your first and second quarters are as billed. Those will not change. The bill you received over the summer, those amounts for February and May of 15 will not change.
Now, I'm going to ask you the $64,000 question. Someone sells their home. How's that going to be handled?
Yeah, that we haven't, no.
Is there any way that that can be notified or addressed, because that issue could arise? Would they know at settlement an issue like this does exist? Would the real estate,
Tax search would have to come
Well,
up.
they usually won't address that at the table, looking for a credit.
Wouldn't it show on a tax search?
No. No, it wouldn't.
Only if we're flagging them.
Only if we flagged it and there's a credit, existing credit showing, but it would not be noted on a search because we're not changing our billing.
Understood. But we can't put a flag in there that money is owed in.
We
other words,
have not
what
been
she's saying
directed
when-
to do
yeah.
that.
See, you
no.
used to do the searches, now the search company searches. So it would be missed. If you were doing every search and signing off, you would have the awareness to apply the credit.
If we were applying it to taxes billed, that's not how the directive is. We're not
I
applying it to a
understand.
quarter billed, so it wouldn't be flagged. When I do the search, I would just show the full quarter as it was billed, not with an asterisk or a flag saying this property is due a credit.
Well, every home that's sold, we have to issue a CO, correct?
No.
Yeah, I
Yes.
believe so.
Yes.
Oh, the fire extinguisher
Yes,
CO.
so can't the construction office keep a list of all COs issued in 2015? Or between the date, whatever date to whatever date?
Guess we
And
could,
we
but I
just
don't think we're
validate
going
that
route.
those were all done correctly?
I don't want to answer for our experts, but my guess is, we could do that, but my guess is there'll probably be direction on this from the state, which will
They'll
tell
probably
us
come out.
how to handle it. And I don't think they're going to leave it up to
And
individual
my guess is there's not going to be a lot of homes
Would
sold
you
in that
agree?
period.
I
of
agree.
time either.
I mean, I don't.
Right, but
9 pages.
we could be proactive and just start maintaining a list. I mean, or do we have a system that COs are entered into that we will be able to pull a list from? What's our record-keeping system for COs?
We have records of.
Okay, so we can pull it.
But we don't have a CO, Amy, if it's a foreclosure. That's what Roger and I were just saying. If it goes to sheriff's sale, if it goes to foreclosure, it goes to sheriff's sale, there's not going to be an inspection for a CO and a fire extinguisher, so we're not going to be issuing a CO, and those are the ones that won't hit the list.
Right, but in the case.
And they're the ones that I'm not as concerned about.
Well, in
No,
those
but I
cases-
understand, but we're talking about something that, whenever the government owns your money, they're not too quick to give it back to you. We know that. Bob, did you,
I mean, the way I see it,
No,
the
so
issue
I mean,
is,
especially on a foreclosure.
who gets the credit, the buyer or the seller?
Right.
It depends on when they do it. Normally in a settlement, they prorate the taxes to a certain date, and there's a payback on the settlement sheet. This is strictly a title company issue.
okay.
And however the buyer and seller decide to do it is going to be up to the title agent, and it's an adjustment on the HUD 1 settlement sheet.
Okay,
Similar
good.
to the homestead benefit, where they
Right,
would take from
so-
buyer and seller.
I just want the public to know that everyone here is on top of it, they're aware of it, the information is out there. If any of you have any, hold on a second, Jim, if any of you have any questions, you're certainly free to call Town Hall, and they'll try to handle you in the best manner. What is it, Jim?
Will this overcharge lower my taxes next July when new bills come out?
Well, it depends on what happens with the tax rate.
Yeah, well, we don't know that yet,
Too
Jim,
early
and
to tell.
that's going to be the next item we're going to talk about rather So I thank you, Cindy, Bob.
Introduction to 3 cent increase.
Renee, thank you. I hope you're feeling well. Bill, would you stay there, please?
I'm going to go sit out here.
I don't know, Bob, just listening to you tonight, I mean, you already did one free of charge. Do we have to pay for the produce?
Well, not last year's.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is reassessment update. And before we get to that, I feel it's my obligation to read to you today an email that came from the tax administrator. And it was sent to Mr. Jacobs, and it's about Hamilton Township reassessment. I just want to make this comment, and I don't only mean to make you blush or anything, but as the county tax administrator, I want to inform you that I consider Hamilton Township's assessor, William Johnson, one of my best assessors in Atlantic County. Mr. Johnson is very knowledgeable, conscientious, hardworking, diligent assessor who's an asset to the township. Is she responsible for your raise this year?
No.
Oh, okay.
He actually looked surprised.
Didn't he?
I got to tell you, having dealt with Bill in a lot of tax appeals, I completely agree.
All right. Well, she goes on to say, I understand there is a meeting tonight to discuss Hamilton Township's reassessment. Please be advised that according to NJSA 54:4-35, the results of a reevaluation are submitted on the tax list filed by the assessor on January the 10th. Following the completion of the reassessment process, since today the reassessment is still a work in progress, any speculation by Mr. Johnson regarding value would be irresponsible. Well, I'm saying this was put on the agenda. Do you have any information?
I don't have any information as to numbers or percent of decline increase. Nothing in that regard. I do have an update as far as where we are in the process, and I'll be more than happy to give you that.
I mean, I could accept that.
Right. The reassessment, or as of today, the reassessment's about 80% complete. We've continued to file our monthly update reports with the Atlantic County Board of Taxation. At this time, we're receiving deeds from mid to late August. Well, the valuation date is October 1, and all values are set as of October 1. Because of that backlog, we'll continue to process deeds into October, probably late October, early November, before we have all the deeds up to that November 1 date, or, I'm sorry, October 1 date.
But, Bill, while you're right there on the point of the deeds, we receive checks from title company to bring in the taxes, and they come in rather promptly after settlement. Would there be a benefit at this point to look at, from whatever your last deeds were coming in mid-August, or whatever is the date, to check with Renee's office on the title searches that came in remitting the taxes due, and see, there can't be a lot, because there's not many deed transfers, but would it be worth it to take that time to identify those, and even if it was a phone call to the title company, could you fax us page 1 of the deed? And then you'd have it without having to wait till late October or November.
It would put a lot of work on my office, and again, we're currently understaffed. We're doing a reassessment along with our
I
normal
understand
day-to-day
that,
activities.
but I don't know that there's that many deeds, that's why I'm suggesting.
When we get a batch of deeds, it's usually anywhere from 20 to 30, and they get delivered every Monday. So there is a lot of deeds, and if we had to go and track them down, that's a lot of work.
Okay.
And we're not going to know the
Just a
title
thought.
companies involved in many instances.
Just a thought.
Yeah. See, I lost my train of thought here, I'm sorry.
You were going
Okay.
from the deeds to the next step.
Commercial properties were just started about 2 weeks ago. We'll continue to work through those and probably into mid to late November with the commercial properties. Commercial properties, as we all know, comprises not quite a third of our overall rateable base, but that is a great, that is going to be a rather large part of our rateable base going forward. As stated in the February memo that went out to all the taxpayers, with the letter outlining the reassessment process, we will be forwarding notice of what your new assessment will be late November, early December. In that letter, we're also going to do an impact letter. An impact letter is simply taking the prior year's budget, in this instance will be the 2014 budget, applying it to the new rateable base to come up with an anticipated or estimated tax rate. That tax rate will be multiplied by what your new assessment is to give you an estimated tax on your new assessment, and that'll all be in that letter. Unfortunately, that does not allow for deduction, so when you do get that letter, it doesn't
gross.
include any deductions or anything like that, but it will give you an idea of what the impact of the tax impact will be on your new assessment. We don't want a repeat of a Galloway situation where everybody's happy with their values until tax bills go out. We don't know at this point in time what that impact will be.
Sorry, when did you say that letter, we could expect a letter?
Late November, early.
Late November, early December, yeah.
And there'll be opportunity for the taxpayers to come in and sit down?
That's actually next part of my report. It will also, anybody that wishes to dispute their assessment, check the validity of the data that was used for your assessment, you will have the opportunity to meet informally with members of professional property appraisers. What we do urge you to do, encourage you to do, is if you have information by way of sales, deeds, wetlands delineations on your properties, surveys, make copies of them, bring them with you, and provide them to the members of PPA when you do meet with them so that they can consider that in your value, and they will get back to you as far as a determination after your meeting. And that's really about it right now on the reassessment. Like I said,
Well,
we
that's-
hope that we're on target for January 10th to be able to file our books. We just, unfortunately, at this point in time, we just don't have the data as far as numbers, preliminary numbers to give the committee.
Well, that's fine. I appreciate the update. I think that's what your preliminary
Well,
wanted, wasn't it?
yeah, I had listed 8 questions, and I think it's was made clear in here. You appeared before us and gave us an idea if we went with a compliance plan in 2013.
Correct.
What you expected would be the impact. It was that report from 2013 that triggered the questions now. So whether
Not a-
Mrs. Schott thinks that it's irresponsible or not irresponsible, it was knowledge gleaned in this room from your voice
Not
that
a-
triggered the questions.
Not a problem. And the compliance plan it's very easy to give
That's
an
fine.
estimate because in essence, we did 9 developments.
That's
We
fine.
made the adjustments. And you're applying for permission to make reductions on predetermined value or percentage. So when we file the plan, we have to give them the numbers that we're going to make the adjustments to.
Okay.
So all that data was done prior to coming in and getting the approvals and so forth.
I asked, and we, instead of just getting a number, which would make things easy, I asked what were the total added assessments for 2013, and I'm thinking by looking at the chart, the number looks like the total value, not the prorated, the total value was 18.6 million. For last year, that would have been impacted by the appeals that would have reduced that new number.
Correct,
Okay?
yeah.
So now come ahead to 2014.
Yes.
And your list is, this is no surprise to me because I'm not aware of any commercial construction in 2014. Might have
No,
been something small, but I'm not aware of anything significant.
No.
10,538,000 was the new added assessments for this year, but I'm not understanding, the other question was, what was the deduct on tax appeals?
the deduct
So
on tax
the
appeals.
10.5 million we went up, what was the deduct? Did it wash, or did we go in the hole?
Right away.
On the county appeals itself, last year,
I just mean for 2014.
for 2014,
Correct.
was about 5,600,000 this year.
So we went down, say, 5.5, and we went up 10.5, so we have a net increase of ratables of $5 million for this year.
Well, the ratables would be for next year.
Understood, but.
Right.
But we don't have a wash this time, we have a +5.
Well, we still have, well, that's
Speculative.
speculative because we do still have a couple of major tax court appeals, yes.
Tax court things, okay. And the last question I had in there Unfortunately, when they printed your response, it came out in landscape, and it zigzagged all the answers. All right, and the other question is the one that they're saying it would be not correct, not proper to speculate where do you think it's going. So we'll let it go at that, but at least we have some answers.
Yeah, and as soon as I do have those numbers, I will forward them to committee when I do have the final numbers.
Which will be early January.
Well, no, we'll have numbers right around late November, early December. We'll have the final book numbers, which,
For January 10th.
for January 10th,
Okay.
correct, but
Okay, thank you.
You're
And I
welcome.
have not seen anybody in the neighborhood to look at any properties.
there are no inspections.
There's no inspections, it's all paper.
Yeah,
So
that,
I've had conflicting comments of whether people are walking on properties or they're not walking.
no, the brochure that, if you've read the
I
brochure
understand.
that was forwarded and was mailed to all the taxpayers, there are no property inspections being done. Nobody will be coming to your home.
So if somebody did have a change to the negative, they should have contacted you to have it looked at.
A change to the negative, I don't quite follow you there.
A fire.
Well, fires, yeah, if a property is materially
That's what I meant.
depreciated, it's their responsibility to contact us. Construction will notify us, Frank Primavera, when there is a fire, will typically notify us. It may be several days later. We'll go out, make the adjustments for the following year, correct?
Okay,
But
thank
it's-
you.
Yes.
So there are no on-site,
Please.
there are no on-site inspections for personal property, for residential property. Is that true of commercial also?
Correct. We're doing it off the income and expense statements that they're providing to us, yes.
Okay, okay.
And I think the goal is, at the end, if you have a question to the new numbers, you certainly will have a right to come in and sit with them.
You will have a number of
I think at that
opportunities to
time,
sit down and
Aileen,
meet,
those
yes.
individuals that may have had beside a fire, any change to the residence that they felt would lower their value, they can bring it in and sit down with somebody.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, Bill, thank you kindly, I appreciate it.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yes.
Judy.
I had a resident, be a little disgruntled about the fact that her house was injured or damaged during Sandy, and then she made the improvements and now her taxes have gone up as a result of repairing her house.
Well,
Is that
there was
is that
about,
possible?
yeah, there was a directive that came back down from the division at the time of the storm. And if you remember, they actually extended the filing of Atlantic County and Cape May County, Ocean County, their tax list until January 30th, so that the assessors had the opportunity, based on their directive and guidelines, to go out and make those adjustments. What I did was I got ahead of the curve. I identified areas where there was damage. I mailed everybody a letter.
Okay.
Also copied the letter from the state and telling them that they needed to contact my office by certified return receipt mail, which was what the directive was from the Division of Taxation. Depending on the extent of the damage, and it was defined in the directive, there was anywhere from a 5% to a 30% adjustment made on the improvement values. Once that work was completed, the assessments were to be restated back to what they were prior to the hurricane. So that by virtue of that assessment being reinstated, their taxes did go up, so they got a benefit for 1 year. The assessments were reinstated for the following year, so that by virtue of that, they did get a tax increase, yes. But the assessment was going back to what it was previously.
So does that mean the people that were forced to raise their houses in a floodplain, that assuming the house was the same house, just lifted up on stilts like in Ocean City, that is not going to increase their assessment because of the stilts?
Well,
Pilings?
yeah, we've only had one instance of that, and that basically they've tore down the entire house in phases and reconstructed it. That's currently under construction. So it's essentially, that house in particular is a new house now. And that was the only instance that we had where people actually raised a house here in Hamilton.
Saw something on Summers Point Road, that's why I was asking, and that was
Yeah.
at Carver Township.
Yeah, other
I saw where they just went up like this.
Yeah, other municipalities, Brigantine, some of the other shore communities are dealing with that much more than we are. Our biggest was 30%, where they had, essentially, it was 18 inches or more water in the first floor of the home.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is C, PBA request for partial payment of attorney fee for a police training commission issue in the amount of $1968.75. Michael?
Yes, sir, Mayor. There's a letter in your packet. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. Pretty self-explanatory. The chief and I are both recommending that this be approved because they did save us in the long run. So, I
Has
don't know if
everyone had a chance to read that?
Yes, I'm in agreement because of the amount of money it's going to save by not having 3 officers sitting in a class someplace for who knows how.
Agreed. Make a motion.
Yeah, I make the motion.
Second.
A motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson, please, roll call.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item D, traffic calming measures update Pinehurst Drive. Michael?
Yes, sir, Mayor. Our traffic safety officer and the chief have made a recommendation, which has been supported by our township engineer, that on Pinehurst, there are 3 improvements that we can make to help calm traffic. One is to put up additional speed limit signs, which we can do as soon as you endorse the project. The second would be to install a 3-way stop sign by the park, which we could introduce an ordinance at the next meeting if you're in favor of that. And the third was to put in a couple traffic humps. And the only question I had on those was probably had to go into the next cycle of paving, our next paving program, but did we want to contact, I don't know if we spoke to fire or rescue about those yet.
Have we gotten a price on the pumps?
The hump?
Pumps, what they cost?
No,
I thought we weren't allowed to do them.
You are.
That was bumps.
Well,
Bumps.
speed bumps you're not allowed to do, speed humps, there's a particular specification that New Jersey allows, but I do know that they don't come without controversy in some, but I don't know if the chief spoke, or the police, did you guys speak to fire and rescue at all? Whether they support it, I think we should at least bounce those off of them, but if you're inclined to endorse this, we can get up the signs and I can ask Mr. Sandman to have an ordinance.
I'd like to
for the
see
stop
the
sign.
ordinance. I'd like to see the ordinance for the 3-way stop.
Well,
That's what we would be tasking the solicitor to do, right?
Yeah, I'm asking if you endorse this memo, we would do all 3, subject to review.
It's been a long
comments.
time in coming.
On the humps.
Pinehurst has repeatedly, we've gotten an excessive amount of calls because it's become a speedway right down to the Black Horse Pike.
It's a straight
A
shot.
lot of children in the area, and I think in the interest of public safety, I think it makes a lot of sense. So this is the first time we've been able to see the light of day with anything like this.
Yeah, the
I
stop
would-
sign was
I-
surprised.
Right.
Go ahead, Amy.
Can we start with the stop sign, the stop signs and the speed limit signs with that ordinance, and the speed humps could be to the future because of what you're saying about road
You
paving?
have to wait anyway, so,
Right.
sure, you can
So
do the
just do
2.
it all together.
I just said, and I did talk with the administrator about this, I had a little bit of concern about the stop sign, because where the stop sign is placed, it's across from a playground, but on the other side, there's really nothing there. It's part of the woods associated with the Horizon housing. So it's unlikely, I would think, that there'd be any kid traffic over there. But as the administrator pointed out, I suppose it's possible a kid could run out in the street after a ball or something, although I think it's unlikely. My only concern is with stop signs, especially with any signs in areas where they don't appear to the driver to satisfy a purpose. That can lose the effectiveness of the sign, that can reduce the respect for some of these signs. So I was a little concerned about that. That's all. I think most
We don't
people are
have too
going
many
to come up
choices.
to that stop sign. Well, we're putting the speed humps in, but certainly if that helps, then I'm for it. But
The ordinance for the stop signs and the adding speed limit signs, because the speed limit's already set, we're simply putting the signage up.
There's
That
no
makes it-
ordinance for that, right? We're just
The
do
or-
it.
Correct.
The ordinance is in place since about 1985, setting the speed limit. So we can put more signs up. We're not changing the speed limit, we're just advertising it more. It's the issue of the ordinance for the stop signs that is why I think we need to do the ordinance to begin with. But I don't see where we have a choice, and I know how effective it was when Bob Morley had, not Bob Morley, the one after him, Bontag, put the red reflector strips on the Estelle Avenue four-way stop, because I almost blew through that one night, never seeing in the darkness, because there was not very much lighting. So on these stop signs, we should have the red reflector strips and maybe put stop signs on the Woods Landing side, so that there's, in effect, we're going to add 4 stop signs.
Well, before we start talking about the type of stop sign, let's get the ordinance going to create the stop sign. So I make a motion to initiate actions for all 3 recommendations.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I'm just, long time coming, I'm really happy.
Mrs. Anderson,
Thank you.
please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. E, Tavistock Community Association request for township enforcement of Title 39 within the development. Michael?
Mr. Mayor, the board from Tavistock would like traffic enforcement. In other words, right now with the streets being private, pending a developer to finishing the improvements, then they become public. But until such time as they become public, we can only enforce, and Chief, please correct me if I'm wrong, careless, reckless, inattentive, and DWI type offenses. But if we do Title 39 as they're requesting, we can enforce all traffic such as speeding and stop signs and things like that. So I asked the chief if he was okay with it, and he was. They've sent this. If, in fact, the committee's in favor of it, I think the first step would be for us to have our traffic safety officer identify whatever signs have to put up. The development would have to put them up, and then once they're up, then we could do the resolution, which is, according to the opinion, all we would have to do.
Mike, we would automatically be doing that once we took back the roads in there, correct?
Absolutely. Once we took ownership of the roads, it would be automatic. You wouldn't need Title 39.
Yep.
It's just doing it a little bit early.
Okay.
Because
I
they're
have
requesting
a
it.
question. The snow plowing of these areas, would that include that?
No.
Or is it just the police?
It's just
the enforcement?
motor vehicle violations. Chief, did I explain that correctly?
I have a question. Apparently, the development pays for the signs.
Yes.
Would that also be true once we take over the responsibility for the streets? Do they still pay for the signs?
Well, we wouldn't release the bonds until they had all the proper signage and landscaping and roads paved and all that. That's part of the bond.
And then
So
over time,
the
it
traffic
would be-
signs, they would pay, well, they would pay for
Well,
on the
Regardless.
The
regardless.
developer, I mean, I'm not sure
Yeah, the developer has to pay.
who will pay for them now. I don't know if the developer would pay for them in advance or whether the association would. But if they're required,
The
they're
township
required.
doesn't pay for it, though. That's the
Correct.
question.
Correct.
Okay.
The question I have is, by chance, Bob, did you look at this at all or not, this request? And
No.
and the reason I'm saying to you is, if there's supposed to be stop signs, are they already up because they're required in the site plan? Or you didn't look at this?
No, the traffic control signage that's required as part of the site plan would be a bonded site improvement. Within phases 1 and 2, my recollection is it's all up. In 3 and 4, we haven't done a punch list, so there could be some missing speed limit signs. The stop signs would be there.
The reason I asked is I emailed Phil today because of knowledge of other developments. Were there any decision and resolution requirements from the planning board when this was approved? For example, parking on one side of the street. I wasn't specific when I said it to him, but the one thing he came back and I remembered is they can't convert a garage in Tavistock. It has to be a parking place for a car, with the other car being parked in the driveway. So that's the 2 parking places per unit. So I wanted to know from Phil, checking the planning board approval, tying right into these questions about signage, the signage should already be installed as required under the planning board approval. So I don't know that, other than what you're saying, whether you didn't inspect it yet or not, but Phil did respond to me that, I don't have that email with me, Phil, and he's sitting over there. There wasn't anything that we needed, right?
Right. That's all.
Just the garage has to stay a garage.
The only restriction, and, the site plan or subdivision plan did show locations of primarily stop signs. I did not see any other signs.
No parking signs or anything?
Nothing indicated on that.
And the limits of lot clearing, or the limits of clearing of the open space, was the other comment he had given back to me. So it doesn't sound like there's any issues like there was in other developments as far as restrictions that haven't been put in place yet.
So you all right with this?
Yeah, I don't think I have an issue with it once I had that answer.
The request is for enforcement, so I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
the request.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
In your opinion.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and
Thank you.
carried.
Item F, the American Legion Building. Michael?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I spoke with a gentleman who may be interested in purchasing it. Of course, that, I'm assuming, depends on the price. Given that, I was going to ask if the committee would give me authorization to submit a letter to the State Historic Preservation Office to see if we need, if that would require an encroachment, if there's any encroachment that, or whether they would approve us, allow us to sell it. My understanding is they're probably going to require us to record an easement that maintains the historic character. So I guess I can go on, but that really, in long and short of it is, can I apply for the application? There's no cost to apply to find out whether or not there's any encroachment. If in fact we have to do an easement, there is a big cost. We actually have to pay about $10,000. We have to endow forever inspections, but that goes to the Historic Preservation Trust.
Yeah.
So, but that you can do at settlement time, so you really don't have to pay that money unless you go to settlement. So I guess this is maybe one way we could get this building back on the tax rolls and back in use, if we want to try it. Doesn't mean he'll bid, our minimum bid might be too much, but if, I don't even need to determine that now, I just need to get to the state,
Yeah,
because
and
it takes months.
If I can just say, I actually brought the gentleman to Mike. I met him at a function, and he knew I was someone from Hamilton Township, and he is a historic enthusiast and also has done this in other locations where he has restored historic buildings. And he's actually, I think, running for office in another town too. He's very involved in his town as well. And he specifically brought the building up and said, "What are you guys going to do with it?" And I said, "Well, I think we're trying to figure that out." And he said, "Well, I'm very interested." So I got him connected with Mike, and Mike spoke with him in detail. So I would love to see us, take these steps to see if he will purchase it, because I think he will do really great things with it based on the discussions that we've had in terms of restoring it and putting it back on the tax rolls as a usable building and a taxable building. So,
Roger, I have two questions.
Sure, I would expect that.
Mike, I don't understand your use of the word encroachment.
That's what they call anything that could affect its historic status. If you wanted to tear off the front porch, that would be an encroachment. If you wanted to sell it, that would be an encroachment.
Okay.
It's just the term that they use, and I tried to stay consistent.
I know we talked at the quality of life meeting, the last one we had was April 30th, about getting a tarp over it. That hole in the roof is now getting bigger and bigger. We're not going to sell it in the next 30 or 60 days, so are we going to get a tarp over this thing?
Well, tarping it's not as easy as it sounds.
I understand that.
And we were waiting for our new bucket truck to come in so that we could have a little bit more reach.
But how much would it cost to go to Zindorf and rent 2 lifts and go up there with 2 lifts? I mean, he could certainly, the cost can't be that much. We rent lifts to put Christmas lights up.
I
So
don't
maybe we could
think a
explore
lift
that.
would get you the angles you need. We need to drape the whole roof.
I understand, but we could ask.
I wouldn't put somebody on that roof.
No, that's what I'm saying, the
Very
lift.
precarious.
I know that Brett is looking at it. I know he's studying. I mean, I'll ask him, but I don't want anybody getting hurt. That's my.
I
and
understand.
I understand you don't either.
I agree.
But
the issue at hand is taking action to make it potential for sale. So I'd like to make a motion that we pursue those steps as Mr. Jacobs
Second.
explained.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson? That's for the proposal for a hazardous materials survey.
No. F.
F?
Ms. Gatto?
Why couldn't we put them all together?
B is a table.
Because
Yes.
if we're going to hold, we're not going to do the other
Mrs.
one.
Dix?
Yes.
Did he table that one?
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
And now because of the action we took on F, can we table G?
Second.
Yes, please.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, proposed ordinance to create no parking zone on portions of 13th Street. Ordinance 1777, 2014, if introduced. Public hearing to be on October 20th, 2014. Mike, that would be,
Both sides of 13th Avenue from Route 50, 1,110 feet.
All in coordination with our new parking lot project.
Connects with the new parking lot, so you don't still have people parking on the side of the road.
Yep. Make the motion.
Can't we discuss it for a while first?
What do you
I
mean?
know
We
that
can
you're in a
discuss when a
hurry.
motion's made too, but I'll
Go ahead.
pull my motion back.
Go ahead, get a motion made?
I pulled it back. Fine.
I raised an issue when we discussed this parking lot months ago. I think it was with Bob and Rodney. We had a quality of life meeting before April. I don't know if it was February or, I don't know when it was. I don't know if you remember. But I think with Pal next door, to take this street in front of the building and make it 100% 24/7, 365 days a year, no parking, is not the right thing to do. I think there's a way to compromise, and if you really don't want people parking out there when town hall's open, then how about if we had no parking between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., so that people would go in the parking lot, but if Pal has, 5 extra cars, and they parked right here in front of the building, and I don't mean in the driveway, I'm talking about at the curb and walked on the sidewalk, that would be workable. It would also be workable for the neighbor across the street if they had company and they couldn't all fit in the yard.
What about using 80 parking slots that are there, and there's a sidewalk there, and there's a crosswalk, and there's steps, and there's lighting?
I just don't agree that we need.
You didn't agree with the parking lot either, so.
I don't agree that we need to ban completely on 13th Street, and that's my objection. I'm looking for permitting on weekends or overnight parking.
Well, I would hope they use the parking lot. That's what it's there for.
I do have a question. Will they be allowed, will that be open to the public for use that's not related to the township?
Sure. It's open to the
Public
public.
Public
yeah.
parking lot.
Question?
I mean, the purpose of putting in the parking lot was to take parking off of the street, to make it a safer corridor. So, again, I make the motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, any questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Anderson, please.
Mrs. Dix?
No.
Ms. Gatta?
Yeah.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor
Yes.
Silva? Oh, yes, or 4-1, it's carried.
Okay, item I, best practices inventory. Mike?
Mr. Mayor, under the law, in order to get the rest of our money, we have to have a public discussion. And I'm here to tell you that we filled out the survey, we filled out the questions, and we've received a score of 86%, which means we would get all of our funds this year.
Great.
I will tell you that they seem to be getting more difficult with each passing year, and there are some things that we checked no to that we want to talk about during the course of this year, so maybe we can get them to yeses next year. So
What percentage do we have to get to make the,
I
to
think
get the
it is
full 100%?
80, I believe.
As long as you get a certain percentage.
80?
I believe it was 80%. All right,
It's on page 3 of their handout.
page 3.
It's tougher and tougher to get your own money back, isn't it?
Yes.
Was that
So,
right?
Right, Judy?
Well, good work to Mike and the finance office for
Yes, Cindy.
the different areas that put that together. Thank you very much.
Very
Okay.
self-explanatory.
We don't,
Yep.
it doesn't require a vote or anything, just the fact that we had this discussion.
Have it on the agenda and have the discussion.
Good. Next item is J, the cotton mill status update. Phil? In one sentence.
The wheels of justice turn slowly. There is no action right now. It's a matter of litigation between Cotton Mill Associates and evidently the financiers from the prior owner.
That mean the Italian guy?
Whoever was involved with Mr. Rinaldi, yes.
I couldn't think of the
Yeah.
name.
Nationalities involved, please.
They're evidently seeking for it to be built out to the maximum amount, and in their redesign and the current status of real estate development, they're working on coming back with a lesser number of units. Once that motion is resolved, evidently the same person is filed to become an equity partner in the same court, and that's going to be more litigation.
So the reason I asked this is because of what is happening, which is continued deterioration, and people are complaining. But you had indicated to us that you expected a presentation here last June.
I had been expecting it, yes.
Exactly, and that's because it's now 4 more months past, and the complaints, that's the reason for the question.
Nor did we know they were going to be involved in a lawsuit, did we?
No.
So the only thing I will tell you, and it's something that we repeatedly bring up to Mr. Jacobs, if you have conversation with him, they got to keep that property clean up. It's become a litter haven. And, you know,
I think they've been doing pretty good.
I don't think they're doing good.
We'll
They
keep
got to make
asking.
sure they cut this stuff and everything, paint's peeling, you know what I mean?
So you think this is going to be protracted then? Before you run away, then, I'm going to ask the question that I asked in December of 2005. The Township Committee declared with a 4-to-1 vote, who voted no, sitting out there, to declare it in need of redevelopment. And the question I asked is, what if you changed your mind? And there was no answer offered. If we decided that we wanted to consider that it's not an area in need of redevelopment, what would be the course of action?
I would defer to Mr. Sandman, but I believe it would be an ordinance rescinding the ordinance.
Okay, I'll settle for that for tonight. Not that I have that on my mind, it's just a question that never got answered, and, you know, it's going to be 9 years. In 2 months, it'll be 9 years. The fire was September 10th, 2007. That's 7 years ago. So, nothing's happening. Crickets. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the public hearing adoption of ordinances. A, 1775, 2014, an ordinance amending Chapter 301, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 16, mid-block crosswalks of the Township Code to include a new crosswalk traversing 13th Street and connecting the Township Town Hall complex with the newly constructed auxiliary parking lot located at Block 758, lots 2 to 4. There's a public hearing. Is anyone in the public care to comment? It's a public hearing. Is anyone in the public care to comment?
Move to close the public portion.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes?
Ms. Scatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item B, 1776, 2014, an ordinance authorizing the sale of Lot 26 and Block 344 as shown on the tax map of the Township of Hamilton and granting to the owner or owners of real property contiguous to the same the right to purchase such land. It's a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have any comments?
Where's Block 344 at?
It's just off of Melvin Newton Boulevard. It's surrounded by a parcel that he already owns.
It'd be on Malta Road then?
Atlanta.
This way? Okay.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else in the public here?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
A motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson? Roll call.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes?
Ms. Scatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item number 8, approval of contract change orders. A1, Action Janitorial, Inc., bid number 2013-04B, $1,695, increased from October 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2014 for additional cleaning services for renovated public works facility. Mike?
Yes, this is to clean the new office space we just created in the Public Works Building
Okay.
for the rest of the year.
So moved.
We have a motion, and do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva? All yes and
Thank you.
carried.
Item B, number one, final for Leapy Track Recreation Complex Football Field Irrigation System, net decrease at $1,200.
Move anything that's a decrease.
Second.
Second.
Second, questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Consent agenda.
I move 9A with the, 9A with the addition through O with the corrected N.
Second. The motion is second. Any questions or comments?
Just a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor. On letter G, just want to highlight that we're making the road closure application for the 60th Annual Halloween Parade on October 30th from 5:30 to 8:30. So get ready, as I keep saying, for the Halloween Parade. Letter L establishes our trick-or-treat time for Friday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. to let the parents know out there. And letter H is also just a reminder in compliance with the steps that we've discussed with Mr. Diesendorfer with regard to our COA plan.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. D, personnel. Appoint Deborah O'Mueller.
We have to take these in executive, right?
If-
Oh, that's right.
If there's discussion.
Huh?
If there's going to be discussion, we can, need to do it in executive. If there's no discussion, you can approve. I mean,
Can we take them in public, or?
If it's simply.
What did the Rice notices say?
it's
Is
going to
it
be,
if-
if there's any discussion, it will be done in executive session. The vote on this, though, has to be in public. So
Right.
if
So
there's no
should we-
discussion, you can just vote on it to approve. If you want to discuss it, we can do it in executive session.
I would move the appointment of Deborah Onemuller as acting Industrial Commission Secretary at $2,000 annually, effective September 1.
Second.
A motion is second. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
I would move the appointment of Mary Lisitsky as
You got to
acting.
say item D.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I move the appointment of Mary Lisitsky as acting Planning Board Secretary at $4,000 annually, effective September 1.
So moved.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
See you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just want to indicate that I did have some questions that are tangential to these particular things that were on the agenda that I rose to Mr. Jacobs, and I think he was in the same line of thinking on some things that we still need to discuss, so I think there will be some more further things with regard to that planning office in general. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, item C, appointment to fill Veterans Advisory Board unexpired term of Douglas Hand. Term expires 12/31/2015.
Mr.
I
Mayor, I'd
would-
like,
I was going to move to appoint Mr. Lewis Green to fulfill that expired term. Lou has been involved in veterans activities for years, I think, as many of you know. He has provided veteran services over at the mall for, 15 years or so. This was discussed with the Veterans Advisory Board team, and they felt that he would add a lot of depth and be a valuable addition to the team. So I moved that he be appointed.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any questions or comments? Can we have a roll call, Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
No, and the reason is that Mr. Green decided to resign in, I believe, 2012, when I was the I'm the deputy liaison, but I go to zoning now because of smart growth. When I was attending the zoning board meetings, he chose to resign because of issues to do with qualifications for the advice he was given, and I just don't think this is the right move. So I am, unfortunately, have to say no this time.
Okay. Ms. Gatto?
I have to vote no, and it's nothing against Lou at all, because I think the work that he does is outstanding for our veterans. But similar to the comments that Ms. Dix made are my reasonings as well. We discussed back in May that we had an applicant, Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Mukesh Roy, who had submitted, and we discussed at that time that the next opening, we would consider his application, and that was the name I was going to move forward, so I vote no.
Okay. Mr. Gishard?
I made the motion, and I vote yes, and there certainly were circumstances involved in Mr. Green's resignation, which I won't get into at this point, but I think they were discussed with the board, and I think he has a lot to offer, and for those reasons, I'm voting yes.
Mrs. Link?
I'm going to echo what Rodney said. I know at times he may be difficult, but he has devoted his life to Veterans Affairs, so I will say yes.
Mayor Silva?
I'm kind of surprised that the name came up. Well, I know Mr. Green, and he does an outstanding job representing and helping veterans at his attendance in the mall on Wednesdays and gives them good information. I agree with Deputy Mayor Gatto that the name that she put forward was the one that was going to be put up next. So I'm not voting no. I'm voting no, but not against. Not because I don't want to see him on the board. It's because I would like to see this lieutenant colonel on before then.
It's defeated 3-2.
You want to make that?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion of the name Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Mukesh Roy.
Second.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
I'm going to vote no, not that I have anything against, what's his last name?
Mr. Roy.
Mukesh Roy. We had talked about him before also, but I do feel that in this particular circumstance, the other candidate was more qualified and has been a lifelong worker for veterans.
Mrs. Link?
I also am going to vote no, although I'm sure this nominee will be a very fine nominee. I echo what Rodney Grichard has said.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
Said yes.
Very resoundingly, he said yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval. Bob, I can take them both together, A and B?
You have to do each of these separate.
Separate. September 2nd, 2014, regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. B, September 2nd, 2014, executive session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Questions or comments on the motions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. C, September 15th, 2014, regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. September 15th, 2014, executive session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. E, August the 5th, 2013, regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. The motion is second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. F, payroll and bills totaling $945,781.99.
So moved.
Motion is second. Can we have a roll call? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Reports. Mr. Administrator?
Nothing to add to my written report.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Thank you.
I echo.
Thank you. Judy?
We have a new business in town. It's Show Enough.
Fish.
Yes, he's going to have the ribbon cutting on October the 13th.
Okay, so I had decided that I would introduce his food to my son-in-law, who loves fish. And he said it was fantastic.
Yes.
It is.
I eat it at hometown.
So
I've had it before. We
yeah,
had it at Mike's grand opening of
Yeah, the fish
Anytime
is called
Fitness, Aileen.
shuey.
I know, yeah.
So I'm not a fish person, but I did take it to my son-in-law, and he loved it.
Good.
And it's at the, it's in the CVS Shopping Center at the
Yes.
old Cousin Mario's Pizza location for anybody who wants to go check it out.
Lenape Plaza.
Lenape Plaza.
He's open now, even though we're cutting the ribbon on the Columbus Day. So.
Okay. What time on the Columbus Day?
Okay.
What time on Columbus Day?
I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know. I'll send an email to everybody. Aileen?
I'm just going to choose my words with extreme care tonight. I spoke again this afternoon to my attorney. There was an email last week that triggered these phone calls and discussions. There seems to be not a clear understanding of a certain settlement agreement. The settlement agreement stipulates that the five of us can go to a window and speak to any employee. Amy, I'm under my instructions of my attorney.
I'm looking at our attorney, because I didn't think we were
Any
supposed to
one
be
of the
discussing
five of
settlement.
us can go to a window and speak to an employee. I want to apply for a dog license, or could I have an agenda, or something along those lines. Anything we do, because we're an elected official, we have assignments. The four of you are assigned to Michael Jacobs. I am assigned to Phil Sartorio, who has left the building. If I want a budget report, I'm to ask Phil, and he gets it for me. If you want a budget report, you're supposed to ask Mr. Jacobs, and he's supposed to give that to you.
And if
That's the extent.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Where do you go to?
I can't stop Ms. Dix from doing what she's doing, and she apparently has consulted with her personal attorney with respect to that. I cannot invade that attorney-client relationship, and I won't. But as to the four of you, I would suggest, and I would strongly recommend, that you not respond. You are represented by other counsel in that matter, but I do represent this township committee, and it is my reasonable belief that my colleague who represents you in that matter would be telling you what I'm telling you now.
And now I will finish what I was saying, that I am clearly, all five of us are clearly permitted to speak to employees. We are simply not permitted to direct them to do something. So whether it's a pothole, that the memo goes to Mr. Sartorio or to Mr. Jacobs, we can go and ask for a dog license or an agenda. And that needs to be made perfectly clear to the employees of who we're allowed to speak to and the limit of what we're allowed to talk about. And that was made clear tonight. Thank you.
What I will say is this. As a result of a lawsuit brought by Ms. Dix, a settlement was agreed to. The terms of the settlement speak for themselves as to how the committee, and in particular Mrs. Dix, is to proceed in light of those allegations as well as others. The terms of that agreement speak for themselves. They are plain on their face. And I would again urge you to consider my advice not to respond.
Rodney?
I'd just like to mention, and I'm sure the rest of you will too, the wine festival was a great event. I'd like to compliment the Merchants Association and the chairman there for the job they did. It was a big success too, as all of you know who attended on Saturday, and particularly on Saturday, but Saturday and Sunday. So unfortunately, I went and bought a bottle of wine, and I didn't ask what the price was ahead of time. But I have to wait for a special occasion to drink it, but I'm sure.
You mean you got the top shelf stuff, huh?
I guess I did.
Could it be because you got all wet that morning and you were sort of confused?
Could have been. Or maybe I had too many wines. I just want to mention, it was mentioned earlier that there will be a resiliency meeting in Atlantic City on the 22nd, and the public is invited. So feel free to come and see what you might learn. Also, I just want to comment that I mentioned before, once again, that one of our residents here opened her home up to those who were interested and had a presenter present some information on water and other environmental issues, and he really did a fantastic job. A lot of enthusiasm there and a great job on the part of our residents. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
I just wanted to, I know we finalized the ordinance to create the crosswalk over to the new parking lot, and I just wanted to kind of put it on the table for consideration. Somehow, some way, we name or honor the crosswalk, the sidewalks, whatever, to the new parking lot to Mr. Sidewalk himself, Jack Percy, former mayor. I think Jack needs some recognition, and I think something so close to Town Hall would be very fitting. Jack, Mike and I were kind of talking about the pedestrian crosswalk signs that'll go in the middle of the road. Maybe we put your face on them.
Step on Percy here. Is that what you're saying?
Like you run over.
But in all seriousness, I would like to see us maybe dedicate the crosswalk and the sidewalk, that area, or even the parking lot to Mr. Percy to just honor his years of service, dedication, and passion for our town. So if we could just put that in your minds for consideration. You deserve it, Mr. Percy.
Hey, she didn't offer you concrete shoes, so be happy.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take her.
And the other thing is, two things. I had the opportunity to present on the mayor's behalf and our behalf as Township Committee, the proclamation in memory and remembrance of Margaret Stringer and the Splash 5K that the Hess School had for the first time this year in the entire K-8 district. Despite it was a complete downpour, that room was filled to the brims, the Hess Auditorium, and it was really quite a moving ceremony that the school district put on, and they just did an outstanding job, and I understand the 5K was a success. So I just wanted to share that we did offer that proclamation. And I mentioned the couple of upcoming events, the Halloween parade, again, the 30th, trick or treat the 31st. Get your floats ready for the Halloween parade. It's our 60th annual. We are looking for continued sponsorships. In particular, we're looking for sponsorships of high school marching bands because there is a cost associated with getting them here, approximately $400 to $500 for transportation. So if any businesses or people are interested in sponsoring, we will take your money with pride. And this weekend, October 11th, is the Fall Festival that the merchants and I think the Historic Society are putting on. So please go out and check that out, and commend you on the great job again, John, for the wine festival. And finally, 4 out of 5 of us got very, very wet on Sunday morning before the wine festival in completing our ice bucket challenge. The police department challenged us. I think the sergeant on duty that day got great pleasure out of dumping the bucket of water on us. Thanks to Public Works for our hard hats, so we remained safe and Jif didn't have any problems with us. And the challenge is now on to our Teamster and Public Works employees who we put the challenge out to, so we look forward to your video. And that's it.
Thank you. Just want to remind everybody, tomorrow night at the school board meeting, Volunteers of America will be coming in and making a presentation to the school board about their intentions with what they would like to do with the Duberson site. I would urge everyone who's always been concerned about that to attend the meeting and just see what they have to say. It's a information type of session, so I think we'll all learn something together. The other thing I'd like to remind everybody, on the 11th, even though there's a fall festival out at Horizons at Woods Landing, they're having their Firewise open house from 10 to noon. I think it's a good program. You'll see your Forest Fire Service there. It's being held in their community room, recreation center, and I think I've attended in the past, others, and it's very informative. The other thing I've been invited to attend on Wednesday evening, October the 15th, it's a community listening forum, and it's put on by the Hope All Day Recovery Center, and they've invited a number of elected officials to sit and listen to the awareness and make you aware of the issues that have been befalling a lot of these individuals, and trying to get people together to recognize the difficulty in the recovery from addiction, the problems that their family members face, and there'll be many other community leaders there, and that's being held on October the 5th, September, wait, hold on, what's the right date here? Hold on, I got it now. It's October the 15th at the Hope All Day Recovery Center in 600 South Odessa, Egg Harbor City. So with that, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public wish to speak? John?
My name's John Kurtz. I'm president of the Mays Landing Merchants Association, and I have county seat florist here in town. Thanks for the comments from everyone about the Wine Fest, but some of the statistics are we had 6,500 to 7,000 people go through the turnstiles in 2 days, and the fact that it's a park, it's under the Parks program, and it's Green Acres. There's a large number of those folks that were able to come in that weren't sampling wine, that could just enjoy the amenities, sit down and have a picnic with their family. And what that did is actually allow the vendors to have more folks available to them, and more of the wineries have more exposure to the public. So it was a great program. We had so many volunteers it took to put that in progress, and some of them are in the room here tonight, and it's really, really important. Rotary Club worked with us. An event like that was huge. Planning started literally a year ago, and it was a great event that showcased our township to people from far away as Delaware, Pennsylvania, even New York. We had people, and that was to do with our marketing program and the use of some social media concepts that we didn't use last year, like Groupon, Rush 49, and there was another one too. I can't think of it right now. But those three forms of social media drove our ticket sales to almost 1,800 tickets sold in advance of the wine festival,
Wow.
which is the biggest amount we've ever had. So the event was an extreme success, and John Ash came through and helped us with the weather, so that was really a plus. Yeah, it was good. And I want to keep in mind that the proceeds from this event help us to fund this year an additional scholarship out at the community college culinary program for a student to attend at the college. Also, we'll be funding some of the proceeds towards the Halloween parade, and among of our other events, like the Fall Festival that's coming up this weekend, and the Dickens of a Holiday, that are smaller, and sometimes we don't raise enough funds to cover the expenses. The Wine Festival covers that area too. So I encourage people to come out to these events. It really is well received in the township. The Fall Festival has some exciting things happening this week. We have a live band, a bouncy ride for the kids, a train ride that's a big hit for the little kids around the courthouse, hay toss, chili contest open to businesses, and all this is at no charge to the community. So come out and support it. I think it's going to be a great event. And again, we want to thank the township for their help too, and the paperwork and the things we had to do to get through to make the wine festival such a big success. Thank you.
Thanks, John, for all your
Thank you.
efforts. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, committee, two things. When the presentation of the green team, I just want to, I appreciate your due diligence in not acting so quickly, even though I thought the presentation was good and the ideas presented were good ones. However, I think when a board is presented with things with evidence or testimony or pushing to have something done, it's a good idea to wait a little bit, another meeting. That way maybe some questions in your mind might arise and you can do a little additional research. So I thank you for being cautious, especially when I think Mrs. Link questioned the costs. Sometimes there's good intentions, but down the road, so they might crop up where you may not have anticipated them. The other issue I'd like to comment on, and I wish I had the settlement agreement, and I know you can't comment, I don't expect you to, but I'd like to comment on what the issue that Mrs. Dix brought up. The settlement, from what I read it, the settlement between the township and Mrs. Dix was very, it was only maybe one page. It was very easy to read, maybe double spaced. But essentially, the township and Mrs. Dix agreed that she would not have contact with any employees. All contact would go through Mr. Sartorio, and if that were not the case, through the mayor. Mrs. Dix brought this situation on herself, no one else. You know, we live in a democracy in this country, and we have organizations everywhere, everything from Boy Scouts to Township Committee to from the local government to the federal government, and organizations are formed to address problems. We're all supposed to work together. There are, by design, on all committees, an odd number of people so there won't be tie votes, okay? And that is by design. It's unfortunate that Hamilton Township government is embroiled in this controversy. I think it's unprecedented that a township committee person would sue the township, the taxpayers essentially, other members of township committee. I wish I had the settlement with me. But Mrs. Dix agreed to this. She signed it to only have contact with Mr. Sartorio. I think it's unfortunate that any township committee person cannot deal directly with the administrator. The lawsuit between the administrator and Mrs. Dix and the township is public knowledge. And I think it's simply unfortunate that Mrs. Dix really, by her actions alone, have taken her really out of the game. It's not good when a township committee person cannot speak with the employees without harassing them or causing a hostile work environment, and that's exactly what happened. Township committee, when you settled the agreement, the suit that Mrs. Dix brought forward, you saved the township potentially a tremendous amount of money, and I have to give you credit for that. By settling, that was not a defeat or a concession by the township committee. You acted in a responsible way to save, potentially, the taxpayers of this township a great deal of money. And I think the taxpayers should be appreciative of what you did. We have to sit here and listen to grandstanding and a lot of baloney week after week. I don't even like to come to these meetings because it's very painful to sit and listen to the minutia and the trivia that Mrs. Dix presents to the township. Okay. So anyway, I think Mrs. Dix is wrong for even bringing it up tonight. She signed an agreement not to speak with township employees. And the reason is because she created the hostile environment from other potential lawsuits, and there's others pending. So I want to thank the four of you for acting the way you should to protect the interest of the taxpayers in this township. Again, thank you.
Hey, Bruce, before you leave, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The statements that you just made are simply your opinions, are they not?
They are my opinion only. That is true.
Thank you.
They're mine. I wish I had the lawsuit in front of me. I didn't anticipate the comment by Mrs. Dix. If I had it, I could refer to it verbatim. This is how I remember it. I think it's pretty accurate. I don't expect comment out of respect for Mr. Sandman, but they are my opinions only. I've been involved on Township Committee and other boards and commissions, as well as other organizations throughout my life. I know many of you have been. Organization, you don't always get what you want. Okay, that's why, like I said earlier, there are always an odd number of people on all boards, commissions, everything from Boy Scouts to Girl Scouts to football teams to anything. You don't always get what you want. And you have to live with that, and you have to move on. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mrs. Anderson, want to read the resolution?
Okay, are we coming back out or not?
Is there any
No action.
personnel now, or there's no personnel? Just collective bargaining? Okay.
And no action will be taken, right?
So we're not coming out.
No.
I asked for collective bargaining, and if there's no personnel, I don't have to question what that would have been. It was apparently the planning board. No, I don't expect any action.
Okay. Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session to discuss matter of collective bargaining, which is exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. Be it further resolved that the governing body will not reconvene in public session because no action is expected to result from the discussions at this time. Be it further resolved that the results of said executive session shall be made known as soon as the basis for confidentiality is no longer confidential.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Somebody who's got a cell phone, what time is it?